Hello everyone. In this module, we are going to learn about twin x's in Matplotlib, and following are the topics that we are going to cover. Firstly, we will discuss about twin x's. After that, we will see a function tick params. Then we will discuss function twin x and twin y. So in the previous modules, we plotted one set of a data on the plot, but in some cases, we may need to plot two sets of a data on the same plot. In particular, this is the case when there are two data sets for the same x variable or for the same y variable. In the other words, you can say that it is a situation where two measurements are taken at the same time and we want to plot them together to support some relationship. In these cases, we need twin x's. And to create a plot with dual x's, Matplotlib provides two functions which are twinx function and twin y function. But before we discuss these functions, I have one bonus function which is tick params. This function is used to change the look of a text, tick labels and grid lines, and the syntax of this function is matplotlib.pyplot.tick underscore params, and in parentheses we pass different parameters. The first one is axis, the next is direction, the next one is length, the next one is width, the other is color, and the last one is pad. So let's look in detail about what is twinx function. This function is used to create twin x's sharing the same x-axis, and the syntax of this function is matplotlib.axis.twinx. So now we will see an example related to this function to clear the concept. And here is the example where we will learn to create a plot with dual y-axis. So firstly, I import the library matplotlib.pyplot as plt. Then I define data coordinates. The first is employees, next one is weight and height. After that, I create a figure by calling a figure function and I assign fig parameter to it. Then I create a subplot by using add subplot function and I assign one as a row number, one as a column number and one as a figure number, and I call this function with respect to fig and I assign axis underscore 1 variable to it. Then I plot a line between employee and the weight and I call plot function for this with respect to axis underscore 1 variable, and I also format it. So I set line color to red, line style to dashed and marker style to circle, and I also add label parameter to it and write it as weight, and I assign line underscore 1 variable to it. Then I add label to the plot. For this I call set x label function and set y label function with respect to axis underscore 1 variable, and it shows that x label represent the employee name and the y label represent the weight in kgs. Then I customize the primary axis. So for this I call the tick params function with respect to axis underscore 1 and I customize the axis ticks. For this I pass axis parameter and set its value to y and I change its label color to red. Then I call the twinx function as I want to create a plot which share the common x-axis. Call the twinx function with respect to axis underscore 1 and I assign axis underscore variable to it. Then I plot one more line and for this I call the plot function again, but this time I plot a line between employee and the height and I assign line underscore 2 variable to it and I set its color to green, style to dashed and marker to circle, and I define label to height. Then I add label to secondary y-axis. For this I call set y label function with respect to axis underscore 2 variable and I assign it as height in centimeter. Then I customize the secondary y-axis variable also. For this I again call the tick params function and I set axis to y and change its label color to green and I call this function with respect to axis underscore 2. Then I want to add ligand on the plot. For this, I assign a variable labels which add the line underscore 1 and line underscore 2. Then I create a variable ligand and it use the for loop to get the labels from this line 1 and line 2 lines. And I call the ligand function. So I pass labels and ligand variable to it to add a ligand on the plot. And in last I call the title function to add a title on the plot, so we get to know what this plot represent. So I set title as a weight and the height of an employee. I also change its font family to cursive and color to blue. And in last I display the plot by calling the show function. So now I execute this code, and here you can see that there is one x-axis but two y-axis. It means it has dual y-axis, but to plot two y-axis we call the twinx function, because twinx function means a plot with sharing the common x-axis. So here one y-axis represent the weight in kg and the second y-axis represent the height in centimeter. It also adds ligands to get to know which line represent what. So with this we know that red line represent the weight and the green line represent the height, and the x-axis shows the name of employee. So now we move to the next function, which is twin y function. This function is used to create a twin axis sharing the same y axis, and the syntax for this function is matplotlib.axis.twiny function. So now we will see an example related to this function to clearly understand the concept. So here is the code in which we create a dual x-axis. For this, firstly I import the matplotlib.pyplot library. After that I define the data coordinate. The first one is time, the next one is price, and the third one is distance. After that I call a subplots function without any argument, and I assign fig and axis variable to it. Then I plot a line, and for this I call the plot function with respect to axis, and I assign line underscore 1 variable to it. It creates a line between time and distance, and I set the color of the line to red, style to dashed, and marker to circle, and I also pass label parameter to it and set its label to time. Then I call the set x label and set y label function to add labels to the plot. So I call it with respect to axis variable, and it shows that x-axis represent the times in hour and y-axis represent the distance in kilometer. Then I customize the primary axis. For this I call the tick underscore params function, and I set axis to x and label color to red. Next I want to define twin x-axis. For this I call the twin y function with respect to axis. Then I create a line chart again with respect to price and distance, and I call plot function with respect to axis and assign line underscore 2 variable to it, and I set color of the line to green, style to dashed, and marker to O, and I also pass label parameter to it and set it to price. Then I once again call the set x label function to add a label to the another x-axis, and I call this function with respect to axis and I set it to price in rupees. Then I want to customize this secondary x-axis also, so I call the tick params function and I assign axis as a x and label color to green. Then I want to add a ligand, so I firstly add the line underscore 1 and line underscore 2 and assign labels variable to it. Then I create a ligand variable and use a for loop in this to get a labels. And in last I call the ligand function to add ligands to the plot, and I pass labels and ligand parameter to it. Then I call the title function to add a title to the plot. So it shows that plot represent the time and price as per the distance, and I also set its font family to cursive and color to blue. And in last I call the show function to display the plot. Now I execute this code, and here you can see that this plot has two x-axis and one y-axis. So the y-axis represent the distance in kilometer, the primary x-axis represent the times in hour, the secondary x-axis represent the price in rupees, and the plot represent the time and price as per the distance. The red line represent time, and the green line represent the price. So with this we learned about twin axis, and in the next module we will learn about logarithmic axis.